Hey guys, this will be video 13 for the how to design build a 59 Korina Les Paul replica using Stuart McDonald templates, which we'll talk about in a little while in reference to carving the top. And it's been about 2 months since I've done a video related to this particular guitar because I got busy selling 2 other guitars and finishing these 2 up at least to a presentable state. But I am behind about a week or 2. So let's get back in the saddle and let's finish this guitar. And I'm going to try my best to not deviate too far from historical 59 specs. However, I may deviate a little bit, but it won't be anything that won't be understood that you could just change back. I'm talking about binding. I'm still in a dilemma about the binding I'm going to use, because this is going to be my personal guitar now and I'm not worried about selling it. But if I were definitely going to be listing this guitar to sell, it would definitely be getting this single binding, and it would be becoming a gold top. I would be painting it as a gold top with the cream binding, Korina body, Korina neck. Where I left off in video 12 was really detailed explanation about how to build this neck, probably so much so that it was overwhelming. And I want to cover something again in a recap fashion so that anyone that I'm considering talking to about building a guitar right now, understands that I don't build guitars this way. This is my personal guitar, and I'm going to call this a scrapper guitar. I had some leftover wood that I didn't think I was going to be able to do anything with, and sure enough, I was able to pull off my own personal guitar. But when I'm building a guitar for a client, I do not do scarf joints, and I certainly don't do any sort of joinery like that. There's nothing wrong with it, and it works fine. It's just as strong, if not stronger, but people tend to frown on stuff like that, and for good reason. If you're getting ready to spend money on a guitar, you want to see that neck to be a solid neck, like a one-piece neck. So anyway, I just want to get that elephant out of the room, and I may show the flying V neck over there, which is a solid one-piece Honduran mahogany neck, which is more in lines with how I build my guitars. Now, for those of you guys that are familiar with my series, you already know that the history of this guitar and where the wood came from and stuff like that. So I don't really need to go into detail, nor do I need to clarify that I don't build scarf joint necks for clients. So this is just my own personal guitar. So where I left off in video 12 was building the neck and all that stuff and all that scarf joint work and how you could hide it if you're really good and you know what you're doing. And after it's all said and done, from a visual standpoint, it doesn't matter anyway. But from a structural standpoint as well. But this guitar is probably, bar none, going to be one of the best playing and sounding guitars I've ever built that was in a solid body footprint, because this Korina is just off the charts. And speaking of that, let's just get the tap tone out of the way. Now, for those of you guys that have never seen me do this or heard this, this is brutal. So if you have earbuds in, you definitely need to either take them out or turn the volume down really low. And even if you're sitting there at your laptop or your desktop, you need to turn the volume down, because this is how we go about assessing the tonal change of a guitar as we're building it, and we're monitoring what happens if we start relieving material to get the weight under control. So I'm going to start from the perimeter, and I'm going to tap around here, and then we'll flip it over and we'll tap on the outside. And so 3, 2, 1. Oh, sorry, let me get my header. Even out there in this thin wall, the Korina is acting as a phenomenal means by which to transfer the tone. It's just an exceptional body wood. Let's go down the tone bars now. And because this guitar is chambered, it has a chamber here, a chamber here, a chamber there, and then this whole area is chambered right here. I did a very intentional design about keeping like tone bars running down the middle of this body. The reason I talk about this is for those of you guys who are tripping up on my video for the first time and you don't know what it is that I'm holding here, because this guitar body is not completely solid. Had this block of wood been left solid and built up, it would have been probably an 11-pound guitar. It would have been way out of the arena of being comfortable to play, and it wouldn't have sounded really any better. It might have been more bright or more shrill, but since this is Korina or Limba, we don't need that. We've automatically got a real bright, articulate wood to start with. So 3, 2, 1. Okay, so it's incredibly vocal guitar. And what is the weight? This is about right at 6 pounds now, which is really unheard of for a Les Paul body, replica body, whatever you want to call it. But it's only because it's chambered. But it's not, as I mentioned, it's not just a bunch of holes drilled into the body to make it lighter. It's very much an engineered relief of the internal part of the guitar. So I'm incredibly happy with it. And I had mentioned in one of the last videos that this mahogany, the reason I used mahogany is not necessarily because I just wanted mahogany, but if I had have used maple, it would have been way too heavy. And I did not want a clear coat guitar on top of a clear coat body. I didn't want that look. So I didn't want the flamed maple top nor an ambrosia maple top. So I knew it was going to be paint grade, but I did not want to go with a poplar or an inferior wood. But I wanted to go with a Honduran mahogany for the tonal aspects of something that would be really complementary to the Korina. And man, did I ever knock it over the fence with the Honduran mahogany. And when I say Honduran, this mahogany actually came from the drops of my neck, where I build necks that come out of like typically one large board. It's like 3 inches by 4 inches by like 30 inches long. Well, I can cut off a part of the side and use that. Those two pieces right there were from the neck material, and then this was from another neck board. So the reason I say this was neck material or Honduran mahogany intended to build necks out of, that means it is like master grade level wood. It's very clear. There's very few knots, if any knots at all. And it's insanely light. It's very light. It is perfectly 100% quarter sewn on this direction. So am I right about? Yeah. So when you lay it down, this is perfectly plain sewn. So all three of these are plain sewn. Okay. And also, if I didn't clarify it, the Honduran mahogany is extremely light, and I knew that was going to be critical because this Korina is a heavily flamed Korina, and it's fairly dense. And the Explorer I built out of this material, the reason it worked, and it just barely was under, I think it was right at a 9-pound guitar, but it was only 1 1/2 inch thick. So from the back of the Explorer to the very top of the Explorer was about that dimension right there. So when you cut off that much mass, then even though it's a dense wood, you're able to get it under control. But you don't have that liberty with the Les Paul replica or, this like the Gretsch penguin type configuration, because it's such a big body. Okay. In other words, it would have gotten way too heavy. So let me check the time. Okay, kind of a long intro there, but I think I'm gonna tough it out and try to continue with the video, because it has been a long enough time that I did need to do some recapping there. Okay, So I talked about the neck enough to kind of cover my ass and let you know that I don't build stuff like this for clients. But for me myself and my Marshall upstairs, this will be just fine. Uh, and I'm not kidding when I say that. From a structural standpoint and a tonal standpoint, you can build like this all day long. And the reason I'll go ahead and talk about this, that way I can get it off the table and it'll be behind us and I can stop talking about the neck so much. I always knew that since I was going to be doing a scarf joint up in here, that I would be doing this stinger on the back. And I typically do stingers on my Flying V's and some of my big body jazz guitars. But it's now this is for a Les Paul custom replica, so you can see how much bigger it is, considerably bigger. But this one will be getting the stinger, and then that will cover that transition right there. And eventually, we'll all forget that it was ever and it's what's called an engineered neck when you build stuff up like that. Okay. So we have our engineered neck, and let's talk about carving the body and getting weight under control. The last, I can't remember what video it was. It might have been video 8 or 9. This top obviously had been glued on after all the chamber work, and I had picked up my small handheld grinder with a 120 grit sanding wheel. And I wouldn't recommend carving your first guitar like that by hand, but I have carved so many guitars with gouge chisels and planes and stuff like that, rasps and big blocks of sandpaper, that I knew visually what I could already see the guitar top even when it was in its S4S state. So that wasn't an issue for me to just grab up my small grinder and stay way the heck out of this area right here, this flat plateau that I initially left, especially up here, because that's where your neck, pitches, your fretboard pitches. But it was easy for me to come in here with my handheld grinder after I defined this distance right here, from the back of the guitar to the top. I know a lot of this is a recap, but I have to since it's been so long since I've talked about it. But let's say you have this 5/8 inch thick piece of mahogany glued atop this 1 3/4 inch roughly bottom. Then you've got this 2 3/8 inch massive material right here that you want to rough out all of that mass rather than slowly work your way to the finish line. If you're getting ready to cut off 1/4 of an inch, well, let's just go ahead and put this up on our drill press or overhead router and define the the true finished guitar plus about a minimum of a 32nd of an inch. In my state, I had the finished guitar plus a 16th of an inch, meaning that I came in with my drill press with a real nice surfacing bit, and I came in and I cut about 3/4 of an inch up into the guitar completely and just defined that shelf perfectly true. Now you have to be, I say careful, you have to make certain that you stop back here, because if you continued on around, you would lose the pitch and you therefore lose your guitar. If it's a paint grade, if it's a stain grade guitar, if it's a paint grade, well, you could epoxy it, but we don't want to make a habit of stuff like that. And because of this beautiful whole Les Paul design, or I'm going to call it the Larry Allers design. I think Larry Allers is the guy that designed this and did the initial carve work at Gibson in the 50s. So this whole beautiful compound radius transition right here, you have to leave all this real tall. So when you're coming around and you're defining this shelf here, you want the bit to come off of the guitar about right here. You don't even want to cut straight across right there, because from this point right here, as soon as it comes around this corner, it starts pitching back up on a compound rolling fashion. Okay. And I've covered all this in much detail in the earlier videos, but to me, that's why it is that we want to build an archtop guitar, because we want to try to, to the best of our abilities, we want to do a really incredible job right here visually after we've done a really good job mechanically, connecting the neck and the fretboard to the body. But after we come out from under that after we come out from under that fretboard, we want to build a beautiful guitar. Okay, and we also want to make certain that it's not too fat and too curvy and too radical. But we also don't want it to get flattened out and turned into a pancake. Now, now, the question would be, is this an authentic 59 carving? And the answer is, it's pretty darn close, but not really. It is up here, but when I carve my guitars, I tend to not have such a fat belly right here, and I scoop a little bit more down into the recurve from here. Well, actually, the whole guitar up to about right here. I scoop a lot more, and back here I definitely scoop more, and then obviously around here as well. But when it comes to this belly, I tend to make the belly a little bit more graceful and a little bit softer, and it comes in a little bit more and a little bit smoother. It's just not so visually bell-like. So it's close. But speaking of that, let's pull these templates up here, and let me see if I can get a wedge in. And I'll show you why you should buy the templates from Stuart McDonald, especially if you've never done this. But I've built a lot of hand-carved jazz guitars, and when I say jazz guitars, I'm talking about the big body, hollow body guitar. The primary reason I bought this template kit from Stuart McDonald is because I was building a guitar for a guy in Savannah, Georgia, that wanted me to build a pretty much spot-on 1954-55 custom replica. And as I explained to him, I said, well, I can carve the guitar per my specs, or if you want to know the truth, I'd really feel better just ordering these templates. And if that's the guitar you want, I know that this template set is based on a 1959 Les Paul burst that was owned by a man by the name of Dan Erlewine with Stuart McDonald. And so I trusted these templates to be a very good means by which we could achieve that guitar, or we could deviate from it with respect to what the template said. Now, I'm just going to hold this up here. Let me cover this very quickly. This is template A, so that's your tail. If I can get it to stand up again. That's A. I'm holding B. That goes across the tailpiece location roughly. And then C goes across the location in front of the bridge, but behind the pickup cavity. So that's A, B, and C. D is the little belly, the waist. And I had this one standing up last night. I don't know if these templates are perfectly S4S, but nonetheless, that's D. And this is E up here, which is really odd. I don't understand E. So if you get these templates, don't carve your guitar with this belly up here, because you're not going to have the belly up there. Maybe they plan on people carving their top first and then planing that off flat. But the way I build my guitars, before I do any of this hard carving, I connect the neck to the body through the mortise and tenon, and I define the pitch at between 3.5 to 4 degrees. This one is right at 4 degrees because it's a very pronounced arch top. But I always define that flat first. Well, even though it's a pitched flat on 4 degrees, and then I carve the guitar. So I say that to say this: template E shows the belly still in there, which no finished Les Paul and or replica is going to have a belly up there, because that's where the neck is. So don't let that throw you, but just follow this arc out here and out here, and that's exactly what I did, and you will achieve that visual that I showed you earlier, the Larry Allers achievement. I like to give credit where credit is due. And if you want to know the history about the beginnings of this guitar, check out Keith Williams' 5 Watt World, a short Les Paul history or something like that. You check the time. Oh, I thought the phone cut off. But he goes into really extensive detail about the origins of this guitar, and he provides a wealth of information based on, like, where did this thing manifest from. And Les Paul did not design this guitar, but he definitely, they were all in the right place at the right time when this design came together. Okay, so by building the guitar the way I build them, you're pretty much guaranteed to not lose that real pronounced, beautiful arch right there. Okay, and I'm gonna stop talking because I've spent just a little bit too much time with that. But then again, if you're like me, when I first started carving guitars, I couldn't get enough information, and I wanted someone to share with me, what are they thinking when they're building a guitar. So on that note, after I defined that thickness plus about a 32nd of an inch to a 16th of an inch, then you want to come in with your grinder or your tools and just start carving it down. But then you're going to end up finishing them up with your Clifton scrapers, Sheffield, England. There may be others out there, but I come right out here on the very end, and that's where I define the pinch like a violin. If you notice, like when I put the D template up there, my belly is definitely round, but it's a little bit more flat radius here. But once it comes over here, my guitar pinches much more. And what I mean by the pinch is this little recurve right here is much more defined on my design than than this template. This template is a little bit more round and graceful and a little bit more fat, whereas mine is a little bit more what I've seen in the historical pictures. And I was looking at an image of Peter Green's guitar where this guy in the UK had it, and it's got a real sharp, real defined cutaway right there, and then it's pretty flat. But when I noticed when the light hit it, the light created a really defined uh, transition from that arc right there. So if you want to build your own guitar, obviously, uh, there's nothing wrong with pinching it a little bit more right there rather than being so fat and round. Okay, but don't plan on getting much recurve, if any at all, right there. I think what's going to happen, you're going to come off the top of the binding and you're going to be pretty much on a 90 degree, and then you'll go over slightly and you might be able to go down just a little bit, but you're not going to go down up there the way you're able to go down back here. You're able to really recurve down into it back here. Okay, building an arch top guitar, that's what this video series should be, because that's truly where my passion is. So let's talk about what would be next. Just work your way to the finish line with whatever tools you're comfortable with, but know that once you come to the end, this would be a trick that I wish I had have known. But I learned how to carve guitars from watching the Robert Benedetto How to Build a Jazz Guitar series, or Building a Jazz Guitar. And I can't remember if he showed this or where I figured it out. Maybe I just figured it out on my own. But you can use these heavy duty pencil erasers, and that's like a 120. And man, you talking about, you can just about, once you get this thing roughed out, you can come in here with your pencil erasers and you can turn up on the corner right there and you can do some really serious cutting. And because it's a little bit forgiving, you don't run the risk of scoring a corner or cutting a corner off. Whereas you might get yourself in trouble with a sharp scraper right there. If you're like trying to come down, you might not be paying attention well, and back here on your hand, you're digging into the body. This is critical stuff when you're building your clear coat, arch top flamed maple guitar. And I got a sneaky suspicion if anybody's watching this video learning how to build this guitar, one or two of you out there, you're going to be doing a clear top. You're not going to be doing a gold top or a black top or something like that. So just when you're building it, your clear guitar, just be real careful and be real slow, because you can't put that wood back. Just like right here, I got about 32nd of an inch too low. Possibly, I may be okay. But if that would not have happened if this had been a clear coat guitar, because I would have been paying really religious attention to making certain that I don't go too far. with a clear coat top guitar. But since this is going to get painted and it's my own personal guitar, I wouldn't have a problem if I had to with letting a little bit of epoxy float in there. And just like that little nick right there, that's a little bit of an epoxy feel. Okay. So your first guitar, as I always say, make sure it's paint grade. That'll keep you under control. I'm going to have to use a cough drop here because I haven't spoken in a while. My voice is really scratchy. So let me pause for a second. Okay, dive back in. So if you're building a guitar, I'd recommend the StewMac templates. I'm not affiliated with Stuart McDonald, nor do I monetize my channel, but apparently YouTube allows everybody and their brother to advertise on our videos. So I just want to shoot straight with you guys. I do not monetize my channels. I'm not affiliated with anyone. So if I'm making suggestions, I'm not getting anything out of it. But you definitely need to invest in some Clifton, Sheffield, England. Yeah, Clifton scrapers made in Sheffield, England. Those are incredible. And obviously, you know, if you're doing this, you probably have worked with chisels before. So I'm going to end the video here within about 5 minutes. But before I do that, I'm going to do, let's do some weight comparatives between these three guitars. And then I'm going to end with, I'm going to weigh these first. And then we'll end with stacking this guitar up in component form and see, assessing where it's going to end up weighing. And I already know it because I've already measured it, and I'm happy with it. She's not light, but she's not heavy either. So let's do some weight comparatives here. And I tell you what, let me pause, and I'll set up the scales, and we'll go from there. Okay, had to make sure the camera was rolling there. We'll start with this little guitar. I'll do a bit of a flyby, although this video is not about this guitar. This is the, I think this is the first replica that I built. This is one I built before I got any templates. And it's just based on like a 58 specs. But I connected the body closer to the 17th fret because initially this was a 24 fret guitar. And you might see in there where the original pickup was a little bit further in. This was all original. That's the original location. But I took off the top 2 frets and turned it into a 22 fret guitar and did a lot of fill in right there. In other words, this little guitar has had a lot of work done to it, but nonetheless, it still looks really good. This is just a multiple nitro cellulose finish. This was all sprayed up here, and that's just buffed with the steel wool at the end. And the more you play it, the more it'll start shining right here because of your finger. But I always leave them very natural. And what's really crazy cool about this body here on the back, every bit of this was done with a brush. I brushed every bit of this nitro. There's no sand and sealer or any pore filler or any of that kind of crap. I don't like that stuff. I like a real open grain. But this was about probably 10 or 12 coats applied with a brush over a course of a few weeks. And just hand sanded, and I kept sanding. And sometimes I would scrape it flat with a razor blade, kind of like a French polished look. But even this neck, every bit of this was done with a brush. So yes, you can brush lacquer on, but you can't do it if you're doing major tint work. The last coat or two I did, or some of the next to the last coats I did have some tint, but I only did that once. Because if you started trying to apply color or tinted lacquer with a brush, that's going to turn into a nightmare. You're going to end up with real weird blotchiness. So let me stop talking about that stuff. Let's just do some weight analysis. I'm sorry I digressed there. And where I'm going, this thing is feather light. This thing is about a ½ pound too light. I did chamber it. Okay, 6.758 pounds, 3,065 grams. Okay, so 6.758 grams, still needing electronics, pickups, you name it. So this is like a 7.5 pound Les Paul, which is a replica, which is just, it's a little bit too light. It should have been 8 pounds. Okay, but but there are guys out there that have physical disabilities and they can't carry a big old heavy fat Les Paul, so that's an ideal little guitar. Now, this is definitely a project that I had wanted to do forever, and it is a very strict, very heavy deviation from historical. But and it was built with woods that this was insanely heavy. It was so heavy that I was going to send the wood back. And I'm not going to talk about this stuff in here. I'll cover this in a future video. But this is a Honduran mahogany, extremely vivid figure. And where I'm going with this, if you order your mahogany and it is insanely vivid, you better get ready for it to be very heavy. The more bland and the just kind of just that Charlie Brown bland mahogany, those are the lighter woods. Okay, like the top of that guitar is real bland, uneventful, light as a feather, but it's not very pretty. Now this guitar or this wood, when it is wet, it's insane. It looks like a sunset. It's so beautiful, but it was so heavy that I knew, all right, this is going to become a candidate to be engineered, chambered, interior, cut out, install a Floyd Rose. You name it, I was taking this baby down as light as I could get it. So you see the guitar, it's a pretty much complete husk, other than it does not have a bridge or strings. And let me look above me first. Okay. 6.460 pounds, that's insanely light, but it's before the bridge. 2,930 grams. Okay, 6.460 pounds, correct? Now, the Floyd Rose, which is a fat brass Germany, you know, the real McCoy, it adds a pound to it. So it jumps up to 7.56, 7.5, we'll say over 7.5 pounds with just the bridge. So from a weight standpoint, this guitar is going to be ideal because it's going to be in that 8.5 pound range, and it'll be a screamer. So this is my personal guitar, and I know it looks really rough, all this butcher block work, but this guitar was originally going to be painted gold against all the black, but then I elected to paint this one gold. So I'm going to be painting this one black nitrocellulose and lacquer, and then buffing it down to a matte finish. So to have a black Floyd Rose, black matte top, the knobs to be determined. The pickups, very, very likely that it will be receiving my Seymour Duncan zebras. Okay, 59 in the bridge, in the neck, zebra, JB, Jazz Blues in the bridge. That'll be a screamer. So what was that? 6.5 pounds? Okay, let me check the time. All right, let me kick it into high gear here. I did not check. Typically, when I do weight analysis comparatives, that's the best location for the scales. Okay, so the body alone. That's bizarre. It is exactly spot on 6 pounds. Now, for some really good information that you should file away, if you are building your Les Paul replica and your body is exactly 6 pounds, well, by the time you add your neck, your fretboard, your electronics, your traditional hardtail bridge, and an aluminum tailpiece, you're going to have a 9-pound guitar. There's no way it's going to end up being 8, 8.25, 8.5. So if you need an 8.5 pound guitar, your body In this state right here, it needs to be 5.5 pounds. So just keep that in the back of your mind. We're at 6 pounds, and I've already kind of given all the information that I was about to present, but nonetheless, I'm just going to start stacking this baby up. Now, I don't have a fretboard with frets in it, but I do know that the fretboard with frets weighs about 170 grams, give or take, and that's what that truss rod weighs. So that's a fair assessment. Let me check the time and check the... Looks like we're well centered there. So that would be our husk. So 7.566 pounds for this husk, which is pretty much identical to this husk over here. Okay? Doesn't mean anything, it just means that I'm building a fairly consistent guitar. So, doesn't have our tuners on it yet, but none of these, that one had tuners, but let's just start stacking it up. You're going to have to add your pickups. So now we're up to 8.096 pounds. And then let's say you're going to do a traditional tail piece. I don't have a bridge, so I'm going to go overkill and just throw some pretty heavy weight up there. But then your 4 potentiometers, and these don't really weigh anything, but I'll put them up there anyway. I think they're like 2 or 3 grams each. So you have your Switchcraft 3-way, your what else am I looking for? Oh yeah, tuners. Gotta have some tuners. Now these are Shaler. Oh, I know what I forgot. Authentic 50s replica parchment rings. So let's see what the guitar weighs. 8.784 pounds before the tuners. I don't have any wiring up there, so, you know, close enough for rock and roll. I don't have the binding on it, and I have not sprayed the body completely. Now, these are made in Germany, Shaler M6s, so they're not exactly the tuner that I would put on here, but they definitely weigh more than the typical tuner that I would be putting on here. So we're looking at 9.218 pounds. I'll look for mode. 4,181 grams. Okay, so a 9.218 pound guitar replica Les Paul is, for most players, this is getting into the realm of getting to be heavy. And especially if you're not careful from here on out, it'll end up being a 9.5 pound guitar. So the tuners that I elect to go with are going to be critical, and I'll be using this tuner right here, or something very similar. Oops. It's like the Gato Kluson replicas. They are feather light, so I probably will be using those. Let me get this out of the way and not pull the camera off the stand. To get it closer to 9 pounds rather than over 9 pounds. Okay. So when you're building your guitar, if your body ends up going over 6 pounds, you're going to be struggling to keep it under 9 pounds, and that might not be a big deal because the guitar that I built for the guy in Savannah, he was telling me, he's like, oh, you know, if we can keep it around 9.5 pounds, that'd be awesome, because the Les Paul that he was playing at the time was over 10 pounds, and he didn't have a problem with that if he just had to. But we crossed the finish line with that guitar. It was, I think it ended up being like 9.3 or 4 pounds, but it had a B7 Bigsby on it. So that was pretty cool that we were able to put a B7 Bigsby on a guitar. Now it was chambered, but it was still manageable and well under 10 pounds. So let me pause, get some of this cleaned off, and then I'll determine how best to end the video. Okay, I was going to end the video fairly soon, but I decided to spend a few more minutes talking about tap tones and things like that, because I don't think I covered it at the beginning of this video because I did this video about an hour ago, but then I got long-winded and I erased it. And at the beginning of that video, I spent quite a bit of time doing tap tone analysis. So if this is redundant, I apologize, and it doesn't mean that I'm losing my mind. It just means the videos are blending together. Now, if you don't know what a tap tone analysis is and you've never seen me do this in the video series, if you're wearing earbuds, make sure you either pull them out or turn the volume down. Or if you're obviously just at a desktop, just turn the volume down, because this can get fairly piercing and can be fairly brutal, because this thing is off the charts vocal. It's very, very snappy and punchy. So I'm going to start up here, tapping, and then we'll go through the whole body, and you can hear the body get darker down here in the larger area. And I apologize, but I can't remember which videos where I did the tap tone analysis throughout the videos, but I did watch all of the initial videos a few days ago, and then I did a tap tone the other night, and it's amazing. It hasn't changed drastically, but it's gotten far more pure and real clear. So the clarity achieved with the Honduran mahogany cap atop the Korina lower is a stellar choice to keep the weight under control. Because if this had have been the Honduran mahogany, the Korina cap that was from the flamed figured wood, I think this would have been a 10-pound guitar. It would have been too heavy. So let's do some tap tone analysis, and then we'll go from there. 3, 2, 1. Even up here in an area that's a 1/4 of an inch wide, you're getting an unbelievable transfer of tone throughout the entire guitar. So now let's go down the middle. Like all woods, you're going to have areas that are called nodes. Those are dead points in the wood. And it's going to get a little bit thuddy, but for the most part, that's what you want your guitar to sound like. Okay? I know that's brutal for a lot of you guys, but for those of us out here that are really in pursuit of tone, we can take note of these tones that we hear as we're building a guitar, and we can just about predict what that guitar is going to sound like once it comes together. And what is this guitar going to sound like? It's going to be a mid-range monster, and it's going to be a real punchy, very articulate guitar. And probably the only way I'll be able to really warm it up and get jazzy warmy will be in the neck position with a thick pick and stuff like that. And then I probably will definitely do a bone nut, so that'll give it some nice balance. But I never intended to build this guitar to be warm, jazzy, or muddy or anything like that. I wanted to experiment with a real throaty mid-range monster. And what really got where I really almost swallowed the hook was when I built that 58 Explorer. You have to keep in mind that was the first Korina guitar I had ever built, and not only was it Korina, it's 100% quarter sawn. The Explorer that I built, as well as this guitar right here. And I didn't clarify that in this video, but every bit of this wood is 100% quarter sawn. And it was a very expensive wood. And I'm watching this supplier, and I even shot him an email the other night and asked him if he had any of this. And he was like, no, that he even considered himself lucky that he had that in stock. So I'm watching. I'm hoping that it'll show up again. If it does, I'll be the first one to buy it. But that makes a big difference. So anyway, so as I say, I got to get emotional there and talk about tone. But that was my objective: a very mid-range, throaty guitar for real hard driving playing. This is not for any soft work. But one thing that I am considering deviating from, probably will not, but there's a possibility I will be doing. Where are they? Well, that's weird. Maybe it's not meant to be. I was considering doing P90s, which the P90 is not my favorite guitar. Oh, they're here on the floor. uh, the P90 is not really my favorite pickup in the world, but if I were to do this guitar as a gold top, I'm really very much in keeping with the 50s design. You know, I don't know if they did a P90 in 59. If they did a P90 in 59, I imagine it probably would have been in a gold top. So they might have done a custom. You know, who knows? I don't know my Gibson history there. So, but I had considered doing the P90 with the traditional, you know, nickel tail and nickel bridge. That would be a really, really classy guitar. Gold top, cream, amber, or antique white P90s. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't want to lose that real mean throaty tone. And sometimes P90s can be just that, real thin and lifeless, especially when you've got a guitar that is this insanely vocal acoustically. I think a good set of just, you know, Seymour Duncan 59s or JB, or, you know, antiquities. The sky's the limit. There's a Seth Lovers. I had considered doing some Seth Lovers in this guitar as well, but we'll cross that bridge later on, because right now I need to be thinking about, you know, getting the neck glued in. So what I had mentioned with the binding, I think might have mentioned it in the video that got erased. But the sky's the limit. If you're building this guitar to sell, definitely go with a 60 thousandths binding, and that's a 16th of an inch route. I typically, what I do is I buy a 1/2 inch router bit, like a facing bit, and then I put a 3/8 inch bearing on it. Therefore, it gives me a 1/16 inch cut. It's a very affordable bit, and that receives a 60 thousandths binding perfectly. When I say perfectly, make certain that you already have this very close to your finished guitar. Very close. I mean, almost finished. Because you wouldn't want to put a 60 thousandths on here and then come in here and start scraping it off. It would get too thin. But if you have your body finished and then you machine that shelf 1/16 of an inch, put your 60 thousandths cream and or white binding, and you are very close to the finish line on your guitar. Okay, you're on your own if you're going to start doing additional, you know, black, white, black, and all that jazz up there. But the reason I brought this binding up is I am considering doing a tortoise binding on this guitar. And if I do tortoise, then I'll have to do a 20 thousandths cream up under it in order for the tortoise to really reveal the beauty of it. And if I go that route, I'm going to have to route this channel deeper. That's what I meant by I'm not really there yet. This is my personal guitar. If I wanted to take the lazy route, this would be it right here, and it would be over within a few hours. But if I go with the tortoise, which is stunningly beautiful, I have some tortoise over there, it's going to cause me to have to do a lot more work. So anyway, just keep that in the back of your mind. The Korina would be really beautiful with a tortoise, and I have not seen that guitar yet. But if I do the tortoise, then I wouldn't be able to do the cream up the side of the fretboard, and I would have to keep in mind that, well, then maybe I need to do something special, because if I do a tortoise binding up the side of the fretboard, I might get lost in it visually because it's so vivid, and it might defeat the purpose. The reason I bring that up is because I built a Penguin, a Gretsch replica. I was all excited about the gold sparkle binding going up the side, and it's a nightmare to play that guitar because you get lost in the neck so bad. So be careful deviating from traditional. They kept it simple for a reason, and sometimes simple is definitely the route to take. Okay, so I appreciate you guys dropping in. I wasn't expecting it to be this long of a video, but hopefully we recapped enough to get us back on track, and we'll keep this guitar going. And if you're building a 59 Korina Les Paul replica, I think what I'm presenting here should be a really good guitar for you to build, whether you're going to keep it or give it to someone that you care about, or either to eventually sell it. And I don't think you could go wrong with either the P90 or the humbucker. Okay, and stay hardtail in your bridge. And if you don't know what you're doing, get the kits from Stuart McDonald, the templates from Stuart McDonald, StewMac.com. Again, I'm not affiliated with them. I don't monetize my channel, but they definitely seem to advertise on some of my past videos, and it's a little bit frustrating. So I have nothing to do with that. So just bear with me as I do these videos, and hopefully we can build a guitar together. All right, thanks guys. I'll see you in the next video.